fire in the woods has got to be the flint and steel fire technique. That involves a steel striker, could be a file, could be the back of your knife, and a piece of stone, most likely a silica content such as quartz, chert, or flint. Now with that you have to have some sort of tinder. In one of our previous videos we talked about this stuff right here, tinder fungus. Really efficient technique, does a good job of it. The most popular material for it is also in this little Ziploc baggie, charcloth. Now what charcloth is denim or any other cotton or even any other plant fiber that's been burned but excluded of oxygen. In a sense, it's a fabric form of charcoal. What we're going to do today is show you a technique, actually several techniques, that don't involve the contemporary and most popular form of making charcloth, which is taking something like an Altoids tin or a tobacco tin and punching a hole through the top with a nail or the tip of your knife, putting in the fire, letting smoke come flying out, which is all the gases coming from it, and then pulling it out of the fire when the smoke is done and putting a stick inside that hole to exclude it of oxygen. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes up to half an hour depending on how much charcloth you want to make. The technique is very efficient, but there's a few problems with it. First of all, you have to have a tin that you want to throw away. You see, after a few times, maybe up to a year, sometimes less than that, depending on what the material is, the tin starts to break down. You start to get holes all over the place. The other problem is, once you put a hole in it, and once you've put it for that option, just for that chore, there's not many other things you can do with it other than holding items inside it, such as little bags of charcloth. The tins are efficient. The job does work, but there's a faster technique, and there's a more efficient technique. And that technique is simply snuffing the fabric. And we're going to be showing you a couple of different tricks to do that, including how to do it with a glass jar, your very own flint and steel kit, if you have one of these, or your Altoids tin or your tobacco tin, whatever it may be, and even with a phone book. Just follow along, we'll show you how to do it. Now the first technique we're going to use is a simple glass mason jar. This can be a jam jar of any size. The reason we want to go with jam jars and mason jars isn't because of the fashion on the outside of it or anything special about it, other than the fact that it's a thick glass that's actually made for high temperature and high pressure. That's the real secret to this. You want to have a glass that is really strong. Now if you're really worried still, you can wrap it in electrician's tape or duct tape to make it less likely to explode or crack on you and get yourself cut. And of course, do all this stuff if you can with gloves on. Now, my hands are pretty much like gloves these days. They've been turned into a bit of rawhide after all the axe use and wood cutting. So I'm going to be a little brave and go on without it. I'm going to take this long strip of denim. I'm going to drape it over this stick. This is just a buckthorn twig that we broke off one of these trees. And I'm just going to light my denim on fire. I want to make sure all the corners and all the edges are engulfed. And it's actually better to do this in low lighting so you can actually see what exactly is burning and what isn't burning. But really, if you see flames on it, it's burning. Give it to about the count of 10, sometimes the count of 20. Keep it near the fire if you want to get it real hot and burning fast. And when you feel like you're ready, usually when it starts to turn to ash on the outside, shove it inside the jar, take your lid. You hear that? Now you know it's ready. It's used up all the oxygen inside. You can shake it around just to make sure that all the oxygen in there gets burned up. Give it about another 10 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All that excess gas. Done. Perfect charcloth. It's as efficient as you need to do. You can rip it into smaller pieces if you want. And just to prove that it does work, I'm going to hold on to that piece for a second. You can see it sitting right there, so I'm not going to be doing any movie magic here and switching it on you. No sleight of hand. I'm taking my flint and steel kit. Now this piece of flint's a little dull because I've been playing with it the last couple of days. I haven't had a chance to sharpen it, so I'm just going to look for an edge right there. That should do. Take this piece of charcloth. Now this next one we're going to do is with this tin. This is actually a Hudson Bay tobacco tin. A lot of people carry their flint and steel kits in it. I do. A lot of people do. You can buy these all over the internet. But this will also work with an Altoids tin. This will work with a tobacco tin. This will work with really any metal container that has a snug fitting lid. That's really the secret to it, is you want it to have a fairly snug lid. The reason being is, again, you want to exclude oxygen. That's all we're doing here. We're snuffing out cotton. We're snuffing out whatever plant fiber we're using. This one has a lot more fibers on it, as you can see with that denim. And therefore, it's lighting up a lot faster than the last one, even though the last one went up pretty quick. And again, in real time, this thing's getting engulfed in flames. I'm going to count to about 10, maybe 15, trying to keep it from falling into the fire. Let that thing get fully engulfed. Alright. Drop it right dead in the center before it gets too warm. Snuff the lid. This one gets a little warmer, a little faster because it's got a little bit more airspace inside. And of course, you have a lot less contact. You have a lot more contact with this in the surface area against your skin. So I usually try and set it down, leave it for about 20 seconds. So this one might take a little bit longer, just because there might be a little seam of air getting in there. But don't worry, it will go out. Check it now. Feels pretty cool in there. Blow away the gas, and again, we have charcloth. Very quick, very efficient. Doesn't take a lot of time. The jam jar technique I learned from a survival instructor named Gino Ferry from Survival in the Bush Incorporated. This other technique I kind of just picked up from him, the idea of snuffing out with just a tin lid. And that was probably about 7 years ago. This technique that's going to be shown next, I actually just learned less than a year and a half ago from Morris Kohansky. And all it really needs is a heavy wooden, heavy book, maybe with a wooden back on it. One of those real big old books from the old time. But a lot of people don't like the idea of you doing this to an old book, so I'd suggest a phone book because not too many people worry about what happens to letters A till B. Light this on fire, again just like last time. This time we're using a little bit bigger piece of denim, so I'm probably going to lay it down this time, let it just get engulfed. You can start to see real big glows in there. And now that it's fully engulfed, I can pick it up. I'm going to go for a minute, well, less than a minute of course. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put it in the middle of the book real fast. Slam shut. Wait for a second to see if you see any extra smoke come flying out, because then you know your book's on fire. If not, try and find the page you slammed shut, if you're lucky. And other than scorching a little bit of the inside, that's all charcloth. Now, along with that, you don't have to use necessarily cotton. This is actually just jute twine. I'm going to cut it a little shorter just so I don't have too much to have to deal with. You don't have to make it all pretty or anything, just a mess like that. Cotton string will do the same thing because of course it's just like the cotton denim. Add a little bit of a slip up. Light that on fire. Now, just to be clear, a lot of jute these days has a fire retardant involved in it now. Throw in the middle, they're fast enough. A lot of it's already going out. Might not have as much luck with this just because the fire retardant is slowing it down before it engulfed in flames. So let's take a look. No, we got some. We got some charcloth there. Well, charred string. Very efficient, does the same job as everything else. Now, along with that, think about everything else out there. This is just plant material. You could use cattail fluff, compress it overnight between 2 heavy rocks or a couple boards of wood, and then light that on fire and put it in there. You can take milkweed fluff, you can take dogbane fluff, you can also take the tops of thistles, anything that's fibrous. You can even, to some degree, probably shred up some barks. Poplar bark would do a great job of doing this. We've had some success with cedar bark, but it has a little bit of resin in it, so it makes it harder to light. But plant fiber alone, you don't necessarily have to carry in with you denim. You don't necessarily have to carry in with you charcloth. In fact, you don't even necessarily have a big fire like this. You take a piece of denim and just take a lighter to it, it will go up in flames. So as long as you have a lighter and you get that first flame going, you can get a big sheet of charcloth. And this big old sheet, this is still a piece of denim, it's not turned into charcloth yet. If you look at this, I can shred it, and shred it, and shred it, and shred it, and then break that in half. Each one of those will make a fire. That's probably a week's worth of charcloth right there in one go. Less than a minute. I have enough charcloth to last me a week. And that's if I don't break it down to even smaller pieces and use it very specifically. So, Just like all of our other videos and all the other things we like to teach everybody, I want to implore you to experiment with everything you play with on this. All this stuff that we showed you, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes down to charred fabric and charred fiber. So just like usual, thank you for watching, and tread softly.